Okay, so I think we can start because we have a very intense agenda this afternoon. So welcome everyone to this online workshop on artificial intelligence and IBD care. I am Antonella Cardone. I will play the role of moderator today for this online workshop. This workshop is organized by EFCCA within the METHYLOMIC project. So a few housekeeping rules. Please keep the microphone closed unless you are called to speak. Then also keep your camera off unless you are called to speak, because this is essential for a sense of order on the screen. Because we are planning to, we are recording this webinar. Then during the Q&A session, you can raise your hand, and when called, you can unmute and pose the question, or you can also put your questions or comments in the chat. I would also like to remind you that this webinar is recorded. So it's very important that you agree with this. You have already, signed off this when you registered for this webinar. But I just want to make it clear so that if you are in disagreement, you need to leave the workshop now. So this webinar will last 2 hours, and we have, as I mentioned, a quite intense agenda. So in order to keep the webinar live and engaging for you, we have prepared a few questions to which you can answer through Slido and the QR code. So please keep your mobile phone also at hand. So before we get into the content of the workshop, I think it's worth to provide a few information about the project. So the METHYLOMIC project is a project funded by the European Commission through the Horizon program. It started in January 2023 and will end in December 2026. So it lasts 48 months. It has a budget of 10 million euros, involves 18 partners from 9 countries, including the UK and the US. Involved in the project, there are experts in clinical research, epigenetics, DNA diagnostics, patient organizations, and industry leaders. The project is coordinated by the Academic Medical Center at the University of Amsterdam, and it's under the leadership of Professor Gert Dagens. So this project is working to improve treatment for immune-mediated diseases like Crohn diseases, rheumatoid arthritis, and psoriasis. Biological therapies such as adalimumab or vedolizumab and ustekinumab are commonly used, but don't work for everyone. Actually, less than 40% of patients respond to any given therapy. So this makes it difficult to predict which treatment will be effective for each individual, leading to long-term disease complications and higher healthcare costs. So this project wants to identify predictive biomarkers, specifically epigenetic markers like DNA methylation, which can help forecast whether a patient will respond to a certain therapy. And by using advanced machine learning, treatment response for biological therapies can be predicted with up to 93% accuracy. So the METHYLOMIC project is committed to bring this personalized or precision treatment approach into clinical practice by developing a rapid test that can predict treatment outcomes for chronic disease patients. And the validation studies are being carried out with experts and patient organizations across Europe. And the project will also test this approach in a clinical trial and work towards a regulatory approval, aiming to create the first personalized epigenetic test of Crohn's diseases. So this is the first workshop of a series that will be organized within the frame of this project. And together with the expert committee and the patient group, artificial intelligence was identified as a priority topic for this workshop, so to start with. EFCCA picked up the topic of artificial intelligence and IBD care. So on the agenda of the webinar, we will start setting the scene with 3 presentations. I'm sure that you have all received the agenda and have the agenda at hand with you. So that you can follow the overall discussion. So we will have an introductory session with 3 presentations from Sarah Van Zon, who is a gastroenterologist from the Amsterdam University Medical Center. Then we will have a presentation from Dimitrios Mikolakis from the Amsterdam University Medical Center, but he will bring the researcher perspective. And then we will have a presentation from Roberto Saldaña, who is representing the patients, and he's EFCCA's Innovation and Patient Engagement Coordinator, and also Director of Innovation and Public Engagement at UPATI in Spain. We will then have a Q&A session, then a short break of 10 minutes maximum, and then we will have a discussion with all the participants, but specifically we have identified a group of stakeholders who will answer questions from the audience, but also some warm-up questions that we have prepared. So and then finally there will be I will sum up and the discussion, and will anticipate some next steps. So ideally, we should be able to draw some sort of consensus on the importance of IBD, of artificial intelligence and IBD care, so that we can then develop as an outcome of this workshop a call to action for the different stakeholders involved in the topic. So now, to warm up and start familiarizing with the poll and the Slido tool, we can launch the first question on Slido. And the first question on Slido is, you can see it on the screen. So which stakeholder group do you represent? And you have 3 options: IBD patient representative, researcher, or clinician. So please start voting. Okay, so I mean, I'm happy to see that the intention has been reached to engage essentially patient representatives of the IBD care IBD patient the IBD patient representation is higher than the rest, as we intended. Okay, so now I would immediately give the floor to the first speaker to start setting the scene. So our first speaker is Sarah van Zon, who is a gastroenterologist from the Amsterdam University Medical Center, and she will present on Omicron, an Omicron study and the next generation sequencing technology. So Sarah, please, the floor to you.
Yes, perfect. Thank you. Thank you very much for the introduction. And I want to start by thanking the organizers of this evening for the invitation as well. I'm really happy to be here. My name is Sarah van Zon. I'm a clinical researcher at the Amsterdam University Medical Center. And today I will be talking about a new clinical trial that we will conduct, in which we will investigate the role of an AI model to predict IBD care. Crohn's disease is, as you unfortunately already know, especially the patients, is a chronic autoinflammatory disease, mostly affecting the digestive system, leading to symptoms like abdominal pain, diarrhea, and bloody stools. Fortunately, there are many therapeutic options available, but it remains really difficult to choose the right medication for the right patient. So in clinical care, we use a sort of trial and error approach where we start a medication and we wait for an effect. But in many cases, the medication has to be switched because of a lack of effect. This can, of course, lead to worsening of the symptoms and can be very frustrating for patients and for doctors as well. However, it is not yet possible to predict the effectiveness of therapy. So therefore, the need exists to be able to predict therapy response most favorably before the medication has been started. Over the past few years, our medical center has conducted an AI model to predict therapy response to two of the medications possible, vedolizumab and ustekinumab. And this model was found to be quite effective in selecting the right therapy. So in the coming years, we will conduct the Omicron trial, in which we will see if the AI tool can be used in clinical setting as well. We will include 378 patients that will be randomized into one of the two treatment arms. Half of the patients will be treated with a medication that is chosen by their doctor, and half of the patients will be treated with a medication that was found to be most suitable by the AI system, the AI model. And this AI model was trained to recognize DNA methylation profiles. And that is something that I need to explain in a bit more detail, of course. DNA methylation is a natural process that occurs in almost every human cell. And in the human cell, the DNA itself serves as a sort of recipe book and tells the cell, gives the cell all the information about the different substances that the cell can make. DNA methylation can be described as a bookmark or a tag on the DNA and tells the DNA which recipes, so which parts have to be used. By looking at the locations of these methylation tags, methylation profiles can be generated. And because methylation profiles are different between different patients, they can serve as a sort of barcode. And our AI model was trained to recognize those barcodes, so those methylation profiles. And we trained the model by showing it many different methylation profiles. We showed the model methylation profiles of patients that do respond to treatment to teach it how to recognize those. And we showed the model methylation profiles of patients that did not respond to treatment. So now the model is able to predict if the methylation profile of a new patient looks more like that of someone that does not respond to treatment or to someone that does respond to treatment. In analyzing DNA methylation profiles, we use a technique called sequencing. And sequencing is a technique that sort of reads the DNA methylation profiles. And because it looks at different pieces of the DNA one by one, it can really rapidly look at the DNA as a whole and which makes it really effective and really sensitive for DNA methylation studies, especially for clinical use. So in our clinical trial, this will imply that we take a little bit of blood from the patients and that we will look at the DNA methylation profile in that blood. And then the AI model predicts which of the two treatments, so vedolizumab or ustekinumab, will be most suitable for that patient. All the patients will be treated for a period of 26 weeks with the medication that either their doctor or the AI model has suggested. And after the period of 26 weeks, we will look at the response, so the effectiveness of the treatment, by a combination of clinical factors, laboratory tests, and an endoscopy. And thereby we will be able to see if the AI model is better in predicting therapy response and in predicting the right therapy compared to doctors themselves. And if it can be a useful technique in helping the doctor select the most suitable therapy. If this is the case, if the AI model is able to predict the most suitable therapy, this will be a whole new chapter in personalized medicine, of course. And in the years that follow, we will be able then to make more AI models to predict therapy response to other medical options as well. And hopefully this will in the future improve patient care tremendously. Then I would like to thank everyone that has been working on this project so far, of course, and I would like to thank all the patients that made this work possible. And of course, I would like to thank you all for your attention, and I am happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Sarah. You've been very also strict with the time, so that's very, very good that we can have a time for the discussion. So, I mean, Sarah provided like she set the scene on how artificial intelligence now is going to be assessed to be helpful for helping the healthcare provider to predict the response of a patient to a specific treatment. So now I give the floor to Dimitrios Nikolakis, who is a PhD candidate, is also from the Amsterdam University Medical Center, and he will speak about artificial intelligence on transcriptomic data for fibrosis treatments. So Dimitrios, the floor to you.
Thank you very much for the kind introduction, and I would also like to thank you for the invitation to speak in this meeting. And during my talk, I will be focusing on the description of AI tools in the field of translational research. And through this type of research, we can translate our findings in the lab towards potential therapeutic applications in the clinic. And I will be mainly focusing on the implementation of these tools towards the discovery of potential anti-fibrotic treatments in the context of inflammatory bowel disease. Next slide, please. Sorry, next slide, please. Is there an issue with the slide? Thank you. Concerning the different cell types of in an organism, we can see that the genetic information can be found in different forms, starting from the form of the genome, which consists the entire set of the genetic instructions in DNA molecules. And these genetic instructions are dispersed in all the genes that can be found in the cell. However, the cell cannot really use this information in that form. So this information needs to be converted to a different format, which is called the transcriptome. And the transcriptome consists all of this genetic information in the form of a slightly different molecule than the DNA, in the form of the RNA. And as a next step, this information needs to be translated to different proteins, since each protein is directly linked with a specific biological function. And the whole set of all the different proteins in all the cells of an organism is what we call the proteome. And going back to the genome level, there is also a set of chemical modifications, for instance, the DNA methylation. And if you can also click, you will see that these chemical modifications consist of all the different. This whole set of chemical modifications is what we call the epigenome. If you go to the next slide, you will see the image. Or maybe it's better to share my own screen, as we said in the beginning. It would be.
Sorry, I'm having some troubles with the presentation. I will try once again.
Yeah.
Sorry, Dimitrios.
Yeah, but it would be also easier to do it via my own screen. I think it's better to do it via my own screen, and I can share it.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Yes, give me a second.
Yeah.
Can you see my screen now?
Yes.
So we'll go straight to the slide. So as I mentioned, if we go back to the level of the genome, there are several chemical modifications that can be identified in the DNA, as also Sarah mentioned in her own presentation. And one of those chemical modifications is the DNA methylation. And this whole set of chemical modifications is what we call the epigenome. However, during our analysis, we mainly focused on the level of the genome and the transcriptome. And if we go to the field of inflammatory bowel disease, there are several genetic polymorphisms. There are several genetic variations in the level of the genome that are responsible for the initiation of either Crohn's disease or ulcerative colitis. And many of these genetic variations are also common between these two conditions. And these variations in the genome, in the level of the genome, can also be translated in variations in the level of the transcriptome, since several genes have been found to be upregulated in patients with inflammatory bowel disease when compared to healthy individuals. And many of these genes are related with several different functions of the immune system. That's why in the current treatment armamentarium against inflammatory bowel disease, several immunomodulatory agents such as corticosteroids or anti-inflammatory drugs have been implemented. And the real breakthrough came via the biological therapies, such as several therapeutic monoclonal antibodies. However, if these treatment options fail, surgery remains as a last resort. But there are also manifestations in inflammatory bowel disease, such as the intestinal fibrosis, in which yet drugs have not been implemented in the clinic. Therefore, there is a clear need for novel anti-fibrotic therapies or therapies that could prevent the fibrosis development. And this was the aim of our computational analysis. In our analysis, we used as an input a signature of genes that are associated with the development of intestinal fibrosis. And having this data input, we used 3 different AI tools in order to identify drugs that could reverse this pathologic gene signature and convert it towards a more healthy, we can say, or a more normalized signature. And apart from this step, we also constructed what we called an interaction network in order to identify genes in that signature that are most important and have the most interactions. However, the crucial step in the usage of these AI tools was to select the most appropriate data input. And that's why, in order to select the most representative data input, we combined information from 3 different patient cohorts, from 3 different patient groups, and we analyzed this information and this genetic information, and we identified genes that you can see with the red dots that were either upregulated or genes that were either downregulated, as you can see with the blue dots, and these genes were associated with the development of intestinal fibrosis in Crohn's disease. And using this data set as an input, we could identify drugs that could reverse this signature and convert it to a more normalized signature. And out of these 3 different AI tools, we could see a list, we could identify a list of drugs that was a common output out of these tools, and these drugs could really convert the pathologic signature to a more normalized signature. And you can see these drugs with the blue, highlighted with blue. And as I mentioned, the next step was to also identify potential key gene regulators in the signature. So we constructed a network in order to see which genes have the most interactions in this signature and therefore are the most important genes to target with new therapies. And we can see with the larger nodes here, genes that have had the most interactions. Therefore, having as a starting step this interaction network, we could also identify drugs that you can see with the blue dots that could target these specific genes. However, all this information, as I mentioned at the beginning, are in the level of the genome or the transcriptome. But what we really care are the proteins, since the proteins are the ones that are directly linked to biological functions. Therefore, by selecting these specific genes of interest and going to the proteins that are related to, we could also identify drugs that are highly interacting with these specific proteins. These proteins are, of course, crucial for the initiation of intestinal fibrosis. And ultimately, these drugs can be potentially tested as novel therapies. The next question that we had is it possible through these AI tools to go to a more personalized medicine approach, to create some personalized therapies that are specified for the profiles, for the specific profiles of each patient? The answer is yes, but for that we need large cohort studies with more than 100 patients. And this is something that we can implement in the future, since we already performed such an analysis in the context of another inflammatory disease, in the context of systemic lupus erythematosus, where we recruited 120 patients, and we could stratify those patients based on their gene signature, based on their genetic information. And we could stratify those patients in different groups based on that information, and in each group of patients was linked with a specific biological process, with a specific biological function. And as a next step, for each group of patients, using these AI tools, we could identify specific drugs that are the most suitable treatments. At this point, I would like to summarize, and I would say that these AI-driven tools holds great promise in identifying new treatments in the context of intestinal fibrosis in IBD, and therefore these treatments can be translated to effective therapies in the clinic. Also, these tools can be implemented to the identification of personalized therapies adjusted to the profile of each patient. And there is also the possibility to adjust this whole computational pipeline to other manifestations of Crohn's disease and ulcerative colitis besides intestinal fibrosis, or even to other diseases. However, the most important take-home message is that there always needs to be a critical evaluation and validation of these AI-generated results in order to be able to proceed to an effective data interpretation and to identify the most optimal therapies that could be used later on in the clinic. At this point, I would like to thank everybody that participated in this project, all of you for your attention, and I would be happy to answer any questions during our Q&A session and, of course, during our panel discussion later. Thank you very much.
So thank you, Dimitrios. And I must say that Dimitrios and Sara made a huge effort in putting a very technical topic into a language sort of accessible to patients, because still it's a very, very technical issue. So now maybe you can start, you can stop sharing, Dimitrios, so that we can allow Roberto then to. Okay, thank you, Dimitrios. So now we so after having heard a researcher and a medical, a clinician presenting the topic, how our artificial intelligence can be helpful for IBD patients. Then now we hear an IBD patient advocate, Roberto Saldaña, on how artificial intelligence and IBD can be combined, and so we will hear about the current applications and future patient expectations. So Roberto, you can maybe share the screen. Share your screen and
yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Antonella. Now, what we have seen until now is amazing. The future of IBD can be a promising one. And how, from EFCCA, can we accelerate the process and also raise the voice of the patient to incorporate it in this clinical trial, this data generation, to understand the real added therapeutic value of these approaches. We have been working in EFCCA in two parallel activities until now. We have been currently bringing clinical research closer to our member association, the patient they represent, generating an interface for them to check all the available information about clinical trial and the authorized drugs in the market, to help them to get the big picture of what is happening on IBD. And we also, at the same time, are generating evidence to support other stakeholders to make better decisions and try to benefit all the IBD patients in general. And we are doing these activities, supporting them according to the stage of the R&D phase they are working on. We have been prioritizing the research, understanding the promising of a new drug, understanding the pattern of participation in a clinical trial, reviewing the clinical the protocol of the clinical trial. We have been reviewing the information to deliver it to the patient that are going to participate in those trials. And we have been also analyzing the results to understand if the results are covering the expectation we had with those clinical trials. And we are doing it thanks to artificial intelligence. We have been using the big analytics tools to extract information from different data sources. And now with artificial intelligence and the large language models, we are generating information to explain this innovation from the patient perspective. For example, when we are checking all the clinical trials around the world, we can right now in this tool, click on the title of a clinical trial and check, for example, why that trial in particular is a promising one according to the evidence we can check in the literature, for example. Every time that a patient click on a clinical trial title, our tool go directly to PubMed or a European PMC to check the papers supporting the idea of keeping generating more information about the proposal. It doesn't matter, is experimental drug, an IBD registered, just like in this case is happening, or it is an observatory study. What is important is that we are delivering information according to the patient expectative. We are delivering the information according to what matters the most to the patient. For example, if they are trying to generate information about the cure of the IBD, about how to reduce the symptoms, the side effect of the current treatment, about if they are trying to generate better tools to monitor the condition, or even if they are trying to improve our quality of life. The idea is not just to promote a clinical trial, to promote the result of the trial, but also to promote those ones that are the better ones, so that we can accelerate the best one. And we are now trying to understand patient needs, real needs, and to incorporate that information, thanks to the artificial intelligence, to the research, to deliver the information to the researchers, so that they can contextualize the concept they need to deal with, and use that information from their own perspective in a way that can improve the trial according to the state of the trial. So what we are doing is we are asking to our patient association to share with us the testimonials they have. We are classifying, thanks to the artificial intelligence, information according to the disease, the sex, the age of the patient, according to their own declarations, the symptoms, and also the side effect. And in a way that we are also capturing the information of how they are describing those symptoms in their daily life. If they are explaining if those symptoms or those side effects are impacting in their life. Because it's not the same that a patient say, for example, I lost my job, that my condition destroyed my life, I lost my family, the job, I don't see any future. The emotional burden of this second statement is not the same. So we need to find the symptoms and the side effects, the expectation of the disease, but also according to how patients are sharing with us those testimonies. And we are now checking all those symptoms, all those side effects with the current evidence in the literature to find the gaps and also to share with the, okay. And also to find the gaps and trying to see if there is something missing in the literature that we also need to address to improve the quality of life of the patients we try to support. And why we are doing this? The idea is to open the best clinical trial we can offer to the patients to cover really relevant medical needs. We have a problem if we don't know why patients need to participate in a clinical trial, or why patients in clinical practice are waiting for new drugs. We also need to understand what makes the difference to improve our quality of life. Sometimes we need only to be able to go out, to hang out, to eat out, and just enjoy our life according to our family environment. Other times we are living in pain, and we need to solve first the pain, the urgency to go to the toilet, incontinence. We need to find the way to stop suffering. So if we don't stratify better the patients, we are not going to deliver the proper solution for them. And we are trying to answer a specific question that regulators and evaluators are asking us to solve, because with the answer we are going to provide, they are going to make the decision of how to use the new drugs, how they are going to positionate the new drugs. Because the added therapeutic value, the relative safety and efficacy profile are going or can vary according to what patients say about those drugs. This is how it's important that we work on this, also on this field, and stratify patient with these artificial intelligence tools we are developing. And that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Roberto. That was very interesting to see a different application of artificial intelligence for the benefit of the patients directly. So now, before moving to the Q&A session, we have another poll on Slido. So again, please take your phone while we launch the poll. Okay, so this poll is about, we have a specific question for you. So what do you think about an algorithm being used to decide your treatment? How does that make you feel? And so the options are, I would be comfortable with it, I would be worried about it, I would like to learn more before deciding, I have no opinion on this matter. So while you answer this, I can also let you know that we plan to have this same question at the end of the workshop to see if anything has changed in some of you, in those who could not decide or need more information or feel uncomfortable. Okay, so the majority says that need more information, would like to know more before making a decision. So that's interesting. I hope that we will provide you more information during this workshop. But of course, with EFCCA, we can also plan additional activities to make sure that the patient community has more information, is more health literate or IT literate before making a decision on artificial intelligence. Okay, so now we can go to the Q&A session. As I mentioned at the beginning, there is a chat function here on Google Meet that you can use on one side. On the other side, you can raise your hand to pose your question. And I can also start with some questions to warm up the environment and the audience. Also based on this poll that we just had, and trying to read the mind of the patient community. So I have a question for Sarah. So maybe all the speakers can turn on the camera so that we can see you here. So I have a question for Sarah. So are there any risks or side effects associated with using the artificial intelligence model to choose a treatment?
Yes, I think that is a really important question, of course. The use of the algorithm itself doesn't really pose any adverse events, so no really big side effects. But of course, we need to take a little bit of blood, which has some minor side effects. We have to perform an endoscopy, and we have to start medication, which also has, of course, a little bit of side effects, but that's the same as in clinical care. So the use of the algorithm itself doesn't really have any major side effects.
Okay, and also, again, for you, how does the artificial intelligence model account for factors like lifestyle, diet, or other medical conditions which are specific from that individual? Because I mean, you know, a patient would say, well, how can my situation be standardized through artificial intelligence? And then we speak about precision or personalized medicine, a personalized approach, and then we use an artificial intelligence model. So how would this artificial intelligence?
Yeah, we know that DNA methylation can change over time, and that it can be changed by lifestyle factors such as smoking. But we also looked at the stability of the DNA methylation markers that we use in our AI model, and we saw that those markers are quite stable over time. External factors such as diet or lifestyle are not incorporated in the AI model itself, but because it has an effect on DNA methylation, it is indirectly in the model as well, but not directly.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you, Sarah. That's very helpful. So I see that, I mean, I cannot see hands raised, so unless I'm mistaken, but I don't see hands raised, but I see some questions in the chat. So I see a question here from Salvatore Leone. How will artificial intelligence improve the development of fibrosis treatments compared to current methods?
So I would say that the real advantage of using these AI tools, but also combining different methods, this is what we did during our analysis, is that we can handle large data sets. So our methodology was based on the identification of potential therapies for fibrosis that are already used for different indications. So these drugs have already been approved. The majority of these drugs have already been approved for other indications, and this is what we call drug repurposing. And through our pipeline, we can effectively and quickly search for compounds that could be directly linked and can directly target the development of fibrosis. With the current methods, we were not able to use such large data sets in order to decide the most appropriate treatments. And maybe that's the reason that so far there were not so many effective drug candidates to treat fibrosis. So I would say that the ability to handle large data sets, big data, is the advantage of these AI tools towards the previous methodologies. But of course, I have to also mention that all these results that are generated have to be critically evaluated based on what is known in the scientific literature. And this is how you can decide the most effective therapy, the most potential effective therapy. And of course, everything needs to be validated in the context of clinical trials. This also will be an integral part of the drug development pipeline, and I don't think will change soon.
Okay, thank you. I think you answered also the following questions, right? Because it's can artificial intelligence help identifying which treatments will work best for individual patients with fibrosis? And then how safe and reliable are artificial intelligence-based methods in creating personalized treatment plans for fibrosis? I mean, those are, yeah, please, Dimitris.
For the personalized treatment plan is something that we didn't yet implement it in the context of fibrosis, because I mentioned an example for what we did in systemic lupus erythematosus, but this is also applicable in the context of intestinal fibrosis. And concerning the safety, even though you don't directly get out of these tools potential adverse events, many of these drugs, as I mentioned, are already approved for other indications. So they have already tested in clinical trials concerning their safety. So you can also have already an image of the safety of these agents, and select the agent that is the drug that is most effective and more safe.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Dimitris. And then there is another question again from Salvo. How soon could patients expect to see new treatment options emerging from this research?
Yes, this is actually an excellent question, because the whole drug development process, if you start from scratch, it can take around 10 years. However, if you can skip some of the safety studies, because as I mentioned, many of these drugs are already approved for other indications and the safety trials have already been done, you can focus only on the efficacy. And this can save you some time. But I would say still some years are needed in order to complete the clinical trials concerning the efficacy, since many of the clinical trials are multi-center trials. And it takes quite some time to collect all the data from all these patients, because the multi-center trials can have a few thousand patients to be can recruit a few thousand patients, and this whole process can take quite some time. Okay,
so that's I mean, a question that I would have, what could we do to accelerate this process? Because once we hear, as a patient community, once we hear that a treatment is promising, and with artificial intelligence, we can improve the situation of the patients in terms of a more targeted therapy from as early as possible in the process of the treatment, then what could we do as the entire community, also with your help, or how we can help you, or vice versa, accelerate the accessibility of these new treatments?
I can. I think this question is for both of us, for me and Sarah, I guess. But I can start. I would say that even though already you can accelerate this process with these AI tools, maybe a combination of AI tools that are used in the more fundamental research, for instance, in the laboratory, with a combination with other tools that are a bit focusing on the clinical outcomes, can also be helpful to accelerate this process. And for instance, if you end up with, let's say, 20 potential treatments out of the data that you can generate it through research in the lab, the AI tools can narrow down this pool of compounds, this pool of potential drug candidates to 1 or 2. And therefore, you can directly proceed with a specific drug candidate on a clinical trial. And then you can already accelerate this process. And if you can do it like in a more personalized medicine approach, and you can see which specific group of, you can predict which specific group of patients will benefit from this specific therapy, then you can really have immediate results and see, for instance, improvement in these patients.
Yeah.
But of course, everything needs to be tested first in clinical trials. I don't expect this to be changed. I can understand that every patient would want to have this therapy immediately implemented to their own therapeutic protocol, but still you have to follow the clinical trial part, and yeah. This can take 2 or 3 years.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I understand. So Sarah, maybe you can, there is another question in the chat. Can it be used, so artificial intelligence, can it be used for older patients?
Yes, we assume it can be used for older patients, but that is something we need to find out in the trial as well. We will include many patients, of course, so then we can see if the population of older patients had benefit as well. But I assume it can be used in older patients as well, yes.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Then there is another question. Maybe this can also, I mean, this is for Roberto if he's there. So what is the best way to reach patients through media or in-person explanation during consultations? Who has to be able to explain artificial intelligence to patient, the doctor? Researchers, yeah. So maybe Roberto, you can.
I'm not sure. I'd say that everything has been tested right now because there are several experiences. Some company has been trying to get feedback from the community directly. For example, for reviewing a clinical trial protocol, they have been asking 200-400 patients at the same time using the crowdsourcing tool. They have been asking patient representatives before starting the recruitment to reduce the process and trying to promote the trial through media. Everything has been tested. What we know right now is that physicians that are not directly participating in a clinical trial don't usually promote a trial. They need to be very close to the trial to promote it. They don't have enough time to do it, and they don't even have the resources, a database to check if the patient can match to the trial. So it's hard because IBD nurses maybe have a better profile because they have more time to speak with patients, but we don't know which one is the most effective method to recruit the patient.
Okay, thank you, Roberto. And another question, one last question now for Sarah. So it's about the use of artificial intelligence to predict the long-term response. Is this feasible? Is this helpful? How this could benefit the patients?
Yeah, I think especially long-term response is something that is a problem right now, because we see in clinical practice right now that some patients seem to improve for a few months, but after a few months the effect wears off, which is extremely frustrating for patients. So long-term follow-up is something that's necessary, definitely. We are going to look in the Omicron trial if the long-term follow-up is positive as well. So we assess the effectiveness of the treatment after 26 weeks, but then we follow up the patients for 2 more years to see if the patients still benefit from the drug we gave them. So that's something we need to wait for, I think, the results of that trial, because that's definitely something that's important. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. I see that there are more questions on the chat, but maybe we can use them also when we have the panel discussion. So now we have a 10 minutes break that has been reduced to 8 minutes. So we will reconvene at 6:10, I mean in 7 minutes now. So please do not leave the room, turn off the microphone, the camera, I mean the audio, but don't leave the link, because otherwise it may be more difficult then to rejoin. So see you in a few minutes then. Okay, in principle now we are at 6:10, so we should start. Let's see if everyone is back. Okay. So now I ask, yes, the speakers, and also we have a set of panelists. So I will call the panelists and see if they can turn on their camera if they're there. So I have, so we have a set of IBD patient representatives. So Cristiano Consorte, then Sabolsk Zentmihali, Sabolsk, Anastasia Ntanu,
Hi.
okay, hi. Then Salvo Leone, then Tommaso Lorenzo Parigi.
Hello.
And then Evgeny Levin.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello.
And then Alessandra Soriano.
Hello, hi.
Okay, so we can now start. So I think everyone is here. Now the idea is to collect questions from the audience in the chat, or if anybody has a question and would like to raise a hand to pose the question to have it more interactive. But while we wait for everybody to get on board, I have a third question for the poll.
Okay.
So get your phone. So do you feel like you know enough about artificial intelligence and IBD care, and how artificial intelligence can help identifying the most suitable treatment for you? Yes, I know enough. No, I would like to know more. And no, and I don't want to know more, as it's my doctor's business. So most of, I mean, everybody would like to know more. So at least this webinar makes much sense to that extent, as we are hoping to provide some more information. Okay, so now we can go back to the discussion. So thank you everybody for answering the poll. So going back to the discussion, we can maybe address, go back to the questions that were already in the chat, and start addressing those questions, because some of them I believe are very relevant. So going back there. was one. So we have, I imagine that we can be happy with all the answers that we've received on artificial intelligence and fibrosis, because this was tackled from different angles. So I think that we answered all of these doubts. Then the long-term response was also answered. Then there is this one. Since artificial intelligence decisions are based on data, how reliable will artificial intelligence be if data will not be available, especially in the beginning? So
I think I can take over and answer this question. So as I also mentioned in my presentation, the most crucial part in using these AI tools, these artificial intelligence tools, is to select the appropriate data set. So if there are no data, you will get no results. As simple as that. We are not. You need to have some sort of data in order to start. Maybe in the future this would not be possible. Would be possible to do it without much data, but we are not there yet. You need to have reliable data to use them for and analyze them through artificial intelligence.
Yeah, and to this end, maybe I have now a question for all the patients, essentially, because this is a controversial issue. You are aware of the European Health Database Directive and the need for patients to share data. So in order to use artificial intelligence, patients must be available to share their data, not only for the direct implication of the clinical trial, but also for secondary use. So is there any of you, of the patients here now, willing to comment on this? I mean, how do you see the possibility to share data? Is this a threat for you? Are you open to share the data? It would be good if we could reach a consensus on this among this community. So I see this is Nastya.
Yes, Anastasia is my name, but people call me Nastya. As an individual, I'm more than willing to share everything that has to do with my disease. And I'm also willing to try everything that can make me feel better, because I'm a fibrotic patient and it's very difficult to trying to find the word to receive the proper combination of drugs. I'm not responding very well to any treatment. I'm at my last and I had 3 surgeries so far. So anything, even the size of my underwear, if it can help me with managing fibrotic Crohn's disease, I'm in. But I'm Greek, and Greeks are not willing to do that. Are even scared to mostly inform their doctors about their condition. They're afraid that someone, I don't think it's a Greek thing, I think it's a normal people thing. People are not very used in technology yet, especially AI, which is the main character in thousands of dystopian literature. So everyone is a bit scared to share his personal things, and some personal things that have to do with their bowel, which is a very sensitive subject anyway, even for ourselves. So I wish we could have more people willingly giving their personal information, but I think it will be very, very difficult to achieve the mass gathering of data that are needed to have a long-term result.
And do you think, Nassia, that this is, even in Greece, that this is this skepticism, so to speak, about artificial intelligence or giving the data, your own personal data, even to your own doctor, is something common in the patient community or in the general population community?
No, in the general population.
Okay, so this is very important. Yes, this is what I wanted to hear from you, because this is what
this is this is my new identity, my personal identity, and we are currently have an uproar for people who don't want to get their new identity because they think that all their data will be available to anyone. I think Dimitrios is laughing because I think you're Greek also, and he knows firsthand what's going on.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes,
I still didn't get my new identity, to be honest.
Really, not yet.
No.
But
I will.
Yeah, but this is the interesting point, that it is not patients who are not willing to have their data shared. It's the general population, because patients are normally already sensitized on the importance of sharing their own data for research purposes.
And, yet they are not willing to do it.
Yeah. Okay, some maybe. Let's see.
Yeah, some.
Yeah. Okay. Salvo.
Well, good evening, everyone. First of all, let me thank you, Antonella as moderator. Thanks to all the speakers, to all the panelists, and also to organize this event that is very interesting. I mean, listening to all the presentation, all the questions that I'm reading on the chat, I would say that the future of IBD is digital. The digital means that if I have to describe this new era of on the cure of inflammatory bowel disease, I will use the 3 words: opportunity, culture of information, and bureaucracy. Opportunity, because I think that the digitalization, the use of artificial intelligence, as also Roberto is demonstrating us, is something that can help us to answer so many questions that until now doesn't have any answer. For instance, with the artificial intelligence, we can monitor the disease between visits. Until now, we are very concentrated on what happened between when we go to the hospital, but we don't know anything what happened between visits. So monitoring the disease using the data collected during the visit can help us to understand better the way the disease proceeds, and also can help the doctors to work better. The other word is culture. We need to convince not only the patient that is important to share their data, but also to involve the scientific community about the artificial intelligence. The artificial intelligence is not the solution for the cure of inflammatory bowel disease, of so many chronic diseases, but is a tool that a doctor can decide to use or not. For sure, it can help doctors to work better in the future, and probably they will help them in find better drugs on a definitive cure for that. And then the bureaucracy, as Anastasia mentioned, we cannot ask the patient just share your data because you already share your data with Facebook or other digital platform. We need to convince the patient that sharing their data is a very easy process. We need to explain them why we are using the data, and we need to identify a process in which when I decide to stop sharing my data, the process will be very easy, like easy was to share my data.
Okay, thanks, Salvo. That's very good. So this is, I mean, trying to summarize what you are saying is that in order to share data, for the patients, it's very important to build a trust, and you build the trust maintaining ownership and control on your data. So you need to know why the data are collected, and if you decide not to let the data be used, so the opt-out should be easily done. Okay, thanks, Salvo. So then, Tommaso, you also wanted to make a comment.
Yes, hello everybody. I'm speaking from the clinician bench, so not a patient. I think there is another important player in all this, and it's pharma companies. So you've mentioned data, and of course the quality of the data is crucial. As of today, the highest level of quality in data we collect comes from randomized clinical trials, which are usually run because of the cost and because of the incentives by companies. And then what happens is that the data that is collected in these trials is oftentimes not available to researchers and clinicians on granular, like in detail. So you only get what is reported in the publication. So I think it's time for patients' representatives and also for clinicians, which have been trying this for some time, to lobby pharmaceuticals to make the data fully available. So even before going into the weeds of getting individual patients' data collected and used on a standard basis, so patients going to their doctors or the hospital outside the clinical trial, which is of course desirable, but it will be very complicated. There is already now a lot of data that is collected and hardly available to others outside the clinical trial. And I think this is time that we demand from companies more access to this, because it's in the interest of the broader public.
Okay, thank you, Tommaso. This makes lots of sense, but I can add that very often it's also research institutes that do not want to share their data. So, you know, interoperability is often used as a pretext. So first are the patients used as a pretext for not sharing data. Like, oh, we cannot share data with another institute also for research purposes because we need to protect the privacy of the patients. But then when you go deep and deep trying to understand this, then you find out that it's the research institute that wants to maintain full control and ownership of the data, not the patient. Then I have Frida.
It's short what I have to say, but we patients need everything about knowing better the disease. So we have to participate in everything we can use to get forward. That's what I have to say. We have to be open.
Yeah, and that is very important, and it's what you are doing here today, and what EFCCA is trying to promote constantly. You know, keeping you animated and alerted on the most recent findings in research. Alessandra Soriano.
Yes, here I am. First of all, thank you all for this great opportunity, very inspiring to me. And I'd like to comment what Salvo and Tommaso were saying about, first of all, the three keywords, culture, opportunity, and bureaucracy. And linking Salvo's words to Tommaso's words, I think that another important pivotal issue is the ethics and regulatory issues on this topic. In terms of, as a clinician, as I am, I think that first of all, we as clinicians need to be trained, very well trained on what is artificial intelligence, what can be useful for us, but to do what? To do something good for patients. I mean, the focus in my opinion, need to be the final focus, the final aim, need to be the patients. So that's why, I mean, I think that we are still at the beginning of the story, because we need to fight, as Tommaso said, with pharma sometimes, because we have a lot of data coming from clinical trial we do not have available for everybody. And then research institutions, and then we have the hospital in front of ours, which cannot share the data with us, and so on. So this is, in my opinion, all this stuff has nothing to do with what we need to do for patients and how artificial intelligence can be practically a tool to better render the journey of chronic inflammatory disorders for patients. And I appreciated a lot, especially the talk of the first slide, one of the first slide of Sarah, while defining Crohn disease as an autoinflammatory disease. I appreciated a lot. And still, I was wondering how many of us physicians know what is an autoinflammatory disease, because this, for instance, is a very new concept. And still we are working, as I've been involved for 20 years in autoinflammatory disease. I've thought a lot to try to, make this idea much more confident. So I appreciated a lot this definition, because we need to know more and more about chronic inflammatory immune-mediated diseases. And then I appreciated the network analysis and graph that Dimitrios showed us in this sense. And finally, all these basic to bench research need to be linked with the emotional phenotype, how patients feel, and what they need. I mean, all the issue about their daily life, as Nastia say, what they are wearing, and whatever. I mean, some practical issues. So again, I think we are still at the beginning. There's a lot to do. The efforts need to be done by every one of us. And as a clinicians, I'm enthusiastic, and I do believe that this will be a great opportunity for patients before anyone else. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, Alessandra. As there are no other hands raised, I'm going back to the chat, and there is a question from Joseph Busuttil, who brings us more on the human side of the artificial intelligence application. And he's asking, can artificial intelligence replace the traditional face-to-face clinical appointments? And if yes, would the patients feel comfortable with less interaction with clinicians? So any comment here, maybe from essentially from the patient's side, maybe even Joseph, if you feel comfortable, you can also say a few words on this. But otherwise, I don't know if any of the patients on the panel are willing to answer this question.
Yeah, what I mean is giving that us patients are suffering from IBD, and IBD, as we know, not for me, but for the majority of IBD patients, it is still considered as taboo, and they are reluctant to speak about IBD and their condition. The fact that we visit the doctor, the fact that we visit our gynecologist, for us, it is a bit of a human relief, if you want, if I can say that. So, is AI taking over these appointments, these face-to-face appointments? Because sometimes a number of patients would need the comfort of a specialist, a gastroenterologist telling you what to do.
Mm-hmm.
So there is a human element rather than I'm all for AI, don't get me wrong, but from the feedback that I get from other patients, they need that human element. They don't want to lose that human contact, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And thank you very much, by the way.
Thank you. Thank to you. So any other patient would like to comment on this? So Roberto, please.
No, it's an interesting comment because maybe there is a generational gap here, because when we have been asking young people in general, not with IBD, people feel comfortable speaking with a machine instead of with another person. So it will be interesting how we can complement with artificial intelligence this kind of monitoring the condition, because maybe AI in a regulated field is complicated that replace completely physicians or nurses, but maybe it's going to be a new layer to filter the consultation before asking the real physician. However, maybe we are going to be able to collect more information speaking with a machine than speaking with a physician. And this is going to be an interesting barrier or challenge we need to deal with.
Yeah. And I can also make a comment here, because so I don't think that the artificial intelligence will replace the doctor-patient relationship, because still what the answer provided by the use of artificial intelligence needs to be interpreted, and that interpretation can only be provided by a medical doctor and not by the patient itself, because otherwise we would really need health literacy to be beyond any imagination. And then I don't think that at least in the near to middle time, we won't be able to reach that, to get that to that risk.
Maybe I would like to challenge this opinion a little bit from my perspective, just with a couple of provocative thoughts. If you look at the development of the Chat GPT and this big boom, what is happening in the textual analysis, and so many of my colleagues are actually saying that the young generation prefers more, or can more openly talk to the machine. I think Roberto said that thing too. So they feel even more comfortable not to talk to the human, but explain the problem that they have to to the algorithm, and listen to first some kind of interesting input, and then judge what to do next. And then, of course, there is no replacement of the human, I think, at this moment in time. But I think it will play a very significant role, definitely. And particularly, I think, among younger population who is more keen on to using this type of chatbots and AI tools, I think this will happen. Yeah. So we are not talking about replacing the clinician, but I think it could well be 50-50, or maybe 70-30, more towards AI and 30% human.
Yeah. Maybe it's this is worth a thorough consideration, and maybe a survey to implement. Yeah. I'm saying this because I mean, my background is in cancer, and with the cancer patient community, we did a survey, and it was specifically on genomic testing and breast cancer. And one of the questions that we asked was, I mean, about their knowledge of genetic and genomic testing, but also from which source you would like to receive information on your cancer. And I mean, more than 80% of the people answered that they want to receive information from their oncologist. So It could, I mean, now there might be an age bias because, of course, cancer still occurs in majority of the cases in older people, in old or in, I mean, in adults rather than in young people. But still, it was very interesting to see that the striking majority of patients would like to receive the information from their doctor rather than on going online. So that for us was a very good good answer that we received on one side. On the other side, it means that the doctors, so that the patients are not satisfied with the information that they receive from their doctors. So Salvo, please.
In the meantime, while you were speaking, and I'm connected with what Professor Levin said, that there is a study on JAMA. They collected a question from a group of between a group of patients, and they asked the question. They asked the question to doctors and ChatGPT. And the result of the study is stating that overall the panel preferred the ChatGPT responses to those given by humans 79% of the time. ChatGPT responses were also rated a good or very good quality 79% of the time, compared with 22% of doctors' responses. And 45% of the ChatGPT answer were rated empathic or very empathic, compared with just 5% of Dr. Repis. So that means that I would say that ChatGPT is a tool that can help doctors, because I believe that doctors are empathic, but sometimes they don't have time. So a tool like ChatGPT can help them to have more time to answer the question. And I would ask my colleagues from the patient community a question. I mean, would you more willing to share your data if in the end you could receive the result of the study being conducted? Because sometimes it's about not being informed about the result. I mean, I'm participating, I'm sharing my data, but then I don't know anything. So I have two questions. One, to comment this study that is very interesting, and then for the patient community, if they are more willing to share their data. Alessandra, I see.
Yep. In my opinion, again, from the point of view of the clinician, all of you got the point. First of all, Eugenie, because what you said and what you provocative said is part of the problem. I mean, the fact that a young patient, an adolescent, prefer to speak, to talk, to say how he or she feels to a machine algorithm instead of a human, it's part of the problem. It's not a solution, because as all of you underlined, first of all, the relationship between the physician and the patients is something that you cannot supply. And I will fight for it, because for cancer patients, as Antonella said, it is really important to have a human contact while communicating diagnosis, prognosis, and so on. Of course, yeah, I think that the problem is even much bigger in the youngest generation. For instance, I don't know, in the survey of Antonella, which was the median age of patients in the survey, but in any case, I think that you got the point, because the challenge is also bigger, stronger in the younger generations, because with all these social and digital tools, maybe they have a really difficulty in communicating, I mean, exercising their empathy. And so it's our, I mean, it's our duty to try to build a good relationship with them. And so that's is my third and last point, artificial intelligence to patients has to be communicated as a tool which is near, as Salvo say, near the physician. It's not something that supply in any how the relationship with them. I mean, the challenge will be stronger and stronger. When ChatGPT will become available to everybody, and there will be a lot of tools like ChatGPT for free that you can use, it will be a mess. And also, we as clinicians need to have time. I mean, the issue of time. We need time to stay with patients. So we have this tool. This tool can be useful to have, for instance, a preliminary evaluation. So for instance, the patient know that tomorrow there will be the visit in the clinic, and he will be invited to have a survey, to propose or to take with him or with her when he or she will come tomorrow to my clinic. And so I can have a much rapid view on how he or she is going, I mean, how he's feeling and so on. I think I'll stop here because I will talk for hours.
So thank you,
Sorry.
Alessandra. I mean, I appreciate your enthusiasm.
Antonella, can I say something? I mean, I totally agree with Alessandra. I mean, at the beginning, all the data coming out from the artificial intelligence must be validated. So I believe that at the beginning of the process, I would not suggest the patient to interact directly with the artificial intelligence, but to interact through the intervention of a professional, of a doctor that can validate the data coming out from the artificial intelligence. So I think it's a tool that, if properly used, can be very useful, not only for doctors, for patients, but also for doctors. We do care about the quality of life of doctors. So I know that using the artificial intelligence can save time for you. So it's also a tool important, not only for us, but also for you.
Yeah. Dimitrios, one last comment from you then.
Yes. And I would like to add that I completely agree with Alessandra. And for now, artificial intelligence is just a tool and not a replacement of the patient-doctor communication. For instance, in the field of diagnostics, the patient-doctor communication is very crucial because even if you document all the symptoms in the medical history through the discussion with the patient, you might discover a symptom that you missed. And then this can change the whole course of treatment, the whole course of action. And I believe that this is very important.
Yeah. Thank you, Dimitri. So now I think we can move on. I mean, we gathered some views and enhanced the discussion. So I would like now to go back to the question that I asked you at the beginning was the second poll. So maybe we can put up the first question. So to see if anything has changed in your view and in your knowledge. So the question was, what do you think about an algorithm being used to decide your treatment? So the question, yeah. So the answers could be: I would be comfortable with it, I would be worried about it, I would like to learn more before deciding, and I have no opinion on this matter. I think that we are pretty much the same. Well, we have an increase in people. Oh. Let's see. Oh, we're pretty much the same as we were at the beginning, with well. So we have not finished to vote, but I mean, it's between those two. I would like to learn more, or I feel comfortable with what I know already. So this, I would be comfortable with it. It has raised a bit. So I think that, I mean, maybe one or two people changed their views, but still it's good. But on the other side, this is also a clear message for, I would say, for EFCCA and for the project, because, I mean, there is a need to inform and educate the patient community. And as some of you also mentioned, not only the patient community, there is a need also to inform the doctors, the physicians community on the importance of artificial intelligence. Okay, now before summarizing, I have another question, another poll. So one other poll. For this poll is essentially to help us deciding on the next topics for the workshops that we plan to do. I mentioned you that there will be a series of workshops. So the last question is, in your opinion, what is the most important priority in clinical IBD practice? So decision-making process, support system, research, and innovation. I mean, we included those questions because, I mean, you also in the discussion that we had today, this decision-making process or shared decision-making process is fundamental, especially with precision or personalized medicine. If there is no openness from the clinician side and the willingness from the patient side to take responsibility for the decisions on the treatment, then there is no point. But I see that still research and innovation remains high among the priorities. That is great. Okay. So thank you so much. And now just a few comments before closing. So to summarize, I think that we touched upon the importance of sharing data for artificial intelligence. And so it is important to share data. Patients are generally more willing to share data than the general population, but still concerns exist among the patient community. Those concerns are related to trust with the people with whom we are sharing the data, as it's important to be part of the why. So the patients need to know exactly why they are giving the data, and there should be a transparent and user-friendly procedures for the opt-out from the research and from sharing the data. Then we, concerning the sharing data, we also approached the topic of the challenges that researchers have in gathering data from other research, parallel research, essentially on randomized clinical trials. And actually, I saw it as a call to action for the patients to help the researcher community to engage the industry and make the industry more open and flexible with sharing the data that they collect on randomized clinical trials. Then again, about sharing data, there was the topic of ethics, regulatory affairs that needs to be tackled and kept into consideration. So this was on sharing data, but then on artificial intelligence, everybody, I think, agreed on the importance and the benefit for patients on using artificial intelligence. But there is this big but. We need to know more. So there is this clear need that came out from the discussion to develop more educational materials, more activities to raise awareness and educate the patient community, and not only on the importance of artificial intelligence and how artificial intelligence can be beneficial to patients. So this is very briefly to summarize our discussion, and then in terms of next steps, with the EFCCA team, we will summarize all the points that were raised and discussed. We will write a report, and possibly from this report we can gather a consensus on certain topics. And then we will see if we will discuss this internally and see if this group of people is enough for showing consensus, or we needed to go broader to the EFCCA community to get a consensus on the main points raised, or main points and concerns raised. And then we could also come up with a call to action. And of course, the call to action won't be only for policymakers, but also for researchers and for patients. So I think that this is essentially what we discussed, and the next steps. So I now would like to thank all of you for attending and being so active in the participation. I must say that I really enjoyed the discussion. It was a very fruitful discussion, and it was interesting to see the interaction, to me, between the different stakeholders. Like we had different perspectives around artificial intelligence from different angles, the clinicians, the researchers, the patients. Among the patients, the more convinced the patients and the more skeptical patients. So I think it was very interesting, and a learning experience for me as well. Then I would also like to thank the METHYLOMIC team, project team, for giving EFCCA the trust to lead on these activities. It's not common, I must say, because normally it's, the clinicians wanted to lead and I could say control the education, or this kind of activities towards patients. So chapeau to the METHYLOMIC leadership, and then also it's important to thank the EFCCA team for organizing this workshop and making it possible also from a technical point of view. I mean, despite the little technical hiccup that we had with Dimitrios, but other than that, everything went very smoothly. Salvatore, I see your hand raised.
Just I want to thank you. I want to thank you, and I was mentioning also a member at the EFCCA staff, in particular Maria Stella, for coordinating this event. So thank you so much. I see Luisa. Thank you, Luisa. Thank you, everybody. It was very interesting. Thanks a lot.
Okay.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you a lot.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye. Bye. Bye.